talking to my son throughout this because he likes to run through the house.
God forbid we have families. You're fine,
Yeah.
Casty.
So my name is Castiana de Andalucia. My pronouns are they, them. I have my contact information down there. You are welcome to email me at itsmeroxyj@gmail.com, or you can contact me on Facebook, Roxy J. Elliott. I check my messages fairly regularly, but I ask you to be patient with me due to both physical and mental disabilities. I am not always able to respond immediately, but if you are patient with me, I promise I will respond. I am always happy to have conversations with people about this class, about consent, about boundaries, or about any of the other classes that I teach. So I do want to say with this class and with all my classes, this is a safe space. And that means that this is, let's see if I can do this. Oh, I went backwards. That means that this is a place or environment in which a person or category of people can feel confident that they will not be exposed to discrimination, criticism, harassment, or any other emotional or physical harm. And I make that disclaimer at the beginning of all my classes. I am not here to scold anyone. I'm not here to place blame, shame, or guilt, or shake my finger at anyone. If you respect me and what I'm trying to do here, then I will respect you. I'm obviously not technologically savvy. So what is consent? The dictionary definition is permission for something to happen or an agreement to something. But obviously, consent is much more complex than that. Consent is clear, coherent, willing, and ongoing. And this is a little, I can't think of the word, sorry. Sometimes words escape my mind as I'm speaking. I'm going to read this image because it's a little difficult to read. It is clear, consent is active, it's expressed through words or actions that create mutually understandable permission. Consent is never implied, and then the absence of a no is not a yes. I'm sure, I don't know, maybe, and similar phrases are a no. It's coherent. People incapacitated by drugs or alcohol cannot consent. Someone who cannot make rational, reasonable decisions because they lack capacity to understand who, what, when, where, why, or how of the situation cannot consent. People who are asleep or in other vulnerable positions cannot consent. It is willing. Consent is never given under pressure. Consent is not obtained through psychological or emotional manipulation. Consent cannot be obtained through physical violence or threat. Someone in an unbalanced position, or unbalanced power positions, example, someone in a position of authority or under a position of authority cannot consent. It is ongoing. Consent must be granted every time. Consent must be obtained in each step of physical intimacy. If someone consents to one sexual activity, she or he may not be willing to go further. I absolutely loved this this way of remembering it. I like mnemonic devices. I love memory tricks. So when you think of consent, think of fries. It is freely given. It is reversible. It is informed. It is enthusiastic, and it is specific. So why is consent so important? Consent allows us to respect our own boundaries and others' boundaries. So what are boundaries? Personal boundaries are guidelines, rules, or limits that a person creates to identify for themselves what are reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for other people to behave around them and how they will respond when someone steps outside those limits. They are built out of a mix of beliefs, opinions, attitudes, past experiences, and social learnings. And then I wanted to put the definition of personal autonomy on here. And this is from the Stafford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Personal autonomy is the capacity to be one's own person, to live one's life according to reason and motives that are taken as one's own and not the product of manipulation or distorting external forces, to be in this way independent. And I know this image, you can't read all the little nuances in here. But it's basically saying that your life is your choice. Decisions on your personal health are your choice. Decisions on your privacy and security are your choice. Interpersonal and social interactions are your choice, etc. So I wanted to go through a little bit about how you set boundaries. And this is for yourself, how you yourself set boundaries. And I wanted to be a little vulnerable here and use myself as an example, because I think using myself as an example is going to be the best way to break down how to set boundaries. So the first way you can start to set boundaries is assess resentment. And that's to recognize feelings of hurt, anger, resentment, and start there. So think back on things that people have done that infuriated you, hurt you deeply, made you feel uneasy, scared, or unsafe, including times that you felt put upon or situations that felt you completely drained. In my examples, that would be being yelled at, and having my thoughts and experiences on a subject dismissed because of my perceived gender. Those are the ones that I wrote down as examples for this class. Another way to do this, hi, Kellen. Can you go back to your room for me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Another way to do this is define what's important to you. I read somewhere to write out your list of treasures. And on my list of treasures, I wrote my son, my creativity, and self-care. Secondly, you turn your resentments and treasures into a list of I will or I will not statements. So some of mine are, I will not be yelled at. I will not have my thoughts and expertise on a subject dismissed because of my perceived gender. I will not be told how to raise my son. I can/will decline requests for my creativity without feeling guilty. I prioritize my health and self-care, and I will not sacrifice or deprioritize it. So that's taking my list of resentments or my treasures and turning them into I will or will not statements. Then you can add then you should add consequences for disrespecting or breaking your boundaries. And these consequences can be as simple as saying no, and I use the word simple loosely because a lot of times saying no is not simple, or as drastic as ending a relationship with a person. So my consequences would be, if I'm yelled at, I will walk out of a room. I will verbally challenge anyone who dismisses my thoughts or expertise due to my perceived gender. If I do not have time or energy to adequately dedicate to a creative project, I will decline the requests for my creativity. If I am shamed or coerced in any way, I will decline all requests from that person in the future. So those 3 steps, I started with making a list of my resentments and my treasures. Then I turned that list into I will and will not statements. And then I added consequences for disrespecting those I will and will nots. And the 4 types of boundaries that everyone needs are emotional and mental boundaries, which are boundaries around inappropriate topics, emotional dumping, or dismissing emotions. Material boundaries, which are boundaries around possessions, when they can be used and how they are to be treated. Time and energy boundaries, which are boundaries around time, lateness, when to contact you, favors, and free labor. And physical boundaries, which are boundaries around proximity, touch. That's supposed to say PDA. Okay, it does. Sorry, I can't read my own text here. PDA, unwanted comments regarding appearance, etc. And then we have people, and we all know these people, who are boundary pushers. And inevitably, someone in your life will object to a boundary and will push back. They refuse to acknowledge it, or they disregard it, or they try to shame or ridicule or guilt you into abandoning it because it inconveniences them, makes them uncomfortable, they feel it isn't fair, or they are offended by it. So I want to talk about how we see these boundary pushers and a couple of types of boundary pushers that are out there. The begging and bribing. When you have clearly stated a boundary, for example, you have declined a request for your time and services, and the boundary pusher continues to ask over and over and over, or starts offering you trivial compensation for your time. Please come over and help me move. Please, please, please. I'll make you cookies. Shame and guilt. When you have clearly stated a boundary, for this example, you have requested that your picture not be taken, and the boundary pusher questions the reason for your boundary, dismisses your feelings, tries to make you feel like you are the bad person for maintaining your boundaries, that you have no cause or excuse for having that boundary, or that their needs are more important than yours. You look fine. I don't know what you're so worried about. I'm getting ready to move away and I want a picture of all my friends. You're just being selfish. Coercion. When you've clearly stated a boundary, for this example, you have said that you do not wish to be hugged, and the boundary pusher has told you what you want doesn't matter, that they are going to do it anyway, that if you don't comply, there will be consequences, or that they are going to make you whether you like it or not. Well, I'm just a huggy person, so you're going to get a hug whether you like it or not. What does lack of or disrespected boundaries look like? Can look like anxiety, chronic exhaustion, burnout, unhealthy coping mechanisms, codependency, toxic relationships, trauma, and reclusiveness. So I want to go back to the 4 types of boundaries everyone needs and what some of these might look like in the SCA. Remember, we have emotional boundaries, material boundaries, time and energy boundaries, and physical boundaries. So emotional and mental boundaries. One of the things that came up when I was talking with some people is being called up in court. Some people may want to make sure that their friends and family are present if they're getting an award. Some people may not wish to be called up in front of a crowd, but still want to attend court. Some people may be comfortable being called up into court as long as they have the right support group present. It has been suggested that those on the docket to receive awards be discreetly informed so early in the day so that they can decide what is best for them and clearly state their decisions. Material boundaries, like taking tape out of a fighter's armor box, or moving someone's stuff off of a table in the hall, entering someone's camp, or taking food off of a buffet table as you pass. Time and energy boundaries. Assuming that someone is going to be in charge or head up an aspect of an event because they have always done so in the past. Assuming someone is going to be in charge or head up something because they are the local officer. Begging, guilting, or coercing someone for their creativity. Physical boundaries. Requesting hugs or other physical contact. Be respectful when you are told no. Making comments on people's physical appearance. Taking and posting photos. And I have ask. And I know that it's been brought up in conversation about posting photos on social media. Is it practical or even feasible to ask every person in the background of every photo if it's okay to take their picture? No. But if you post a photo on a public forum and that person contacts you privately and asks you to remove the photo, please do so. But it's a really good photo of so-and-so's important whatchamacallit. It's not that big of a deal that you're in the background. That's a case of a guilt boundary pusher.
Castiana,
Yes,
can I ask a practical question on the photograph one?
certainly.
I'll put this in a hypothetical because I've had this happen. So I
Okay.
take a photograph and let's say, for instance, you are in the background of the shot.
Mhm.
and you are not part of the central subject. That's kind of
Mhm.
critical for this. You
Yes.
contact me and say, I don't want my photograph up there right now. Can you please take that down?
Mhm.
Can I edit the photo, like just put a black box or crop it so that you're not in? If I do that so that you're no longer clear in the photo, that pretty much removes your input from the photograph. I mean, you can't say, I still don't want that photograph up there, correct?
I mean, if my boundary is not wanting my photo on on
Okay.
social media, and you remove me from the photo, then that clears my boundary.
And I asked that from a pragmatic standpoint of there is a school of thought that is, how shall we say, a little more invasive than that when you're input in a photograph. So I was just curious, since you've obviously researched this, what your line was. So that's a good answer, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Since I am coming at this just from the point of view of boundaries and respecting people's boundaries, my view on that would be the person who requested not have their photo on social media, that would be clear, that would be them clearly stating the boundary that they don't want their picture on social media. So
Okay.
if you remove their image, that would be clearing that boundary.
Okay. All right.
So,
Excellent. Thank you.
certainly. And then my lovely, just when in doubt, ask. Ask, 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 ask. And I know asking is inconvenient. I know that a lot of our fighters get in the habit of, oh, I know this person, or, you know, someone comes up, I need tape. Oh, you can take it out of their box. They won't mind. But they might mind, or they may not mind one time, but they may mind the next time. So I know it can be inconvenient. I know it can get tiresome to continually ask. I know it can get tiresome to continually ask every time you want to enter someone's camp, but we are trying to build a community that respects each other. I love this. Keep calm and get consent, because we have to go back to this. This is what disrespected boundaries look like. And sometimes we don't even recognize when our boundaries are being disrespected ourselves, because it's not always a big thing. Sometimes it's little things, but sometimes it's little things over time. Sometimes it's little things over and over and over again, until our anxiety becomes a problem, until we burn out, until we quit playing in the SCA. And this is supposed to be fun. This is what we do for fun. This is our escape from reality. We don't want our fun to turn into anxiety, to turn into burnout, to turn into unhealthy coping mechanisms. And we don't want that for our friends. And we need to start consciously thinking about not only respecting our own boundaries, but respecting the boundaries of the people in our community. And also in the reverse, we need to be thinking about respecting the boundaries of the people in our community, and consciously thinking about respecting our own boundaries. When people continually ask you for your time and creativity, I know a lot of us are, sure, I can do that. Sure, I can do that. Sure, I can do that kind of people, to the point of exhaustion and burnout. And we want to make sure that the SCA stays a fun and healthy and safe place for everyone. I know that retention is a big concern right now in our dream, in our community. And I think that one of the ways that we can focus on retention, focus on keeping people in this game that we love so much, is focusing on building a culture of consent, focusing on respecting our own boundaries, focusing on respecting other people's boundaries so that we're not burning out, so that we're not pushing ourselves or other people to the point of anxiety and chronic exhaustion. So this lovely little, boundaries sound like, I will end this phone call if you continue to shout at me. I can stay for half an hour. Thank you for your offer, but unfortunately I can't make it. I keep having to move your lovely pictures around because I can't read my own slides. I'm not comfortable discussing that. Please do not discuss it with me. I need time to think about it. I'll come back to you. I don't respond to work emails on the weekends. I'm not comfortable with that. If you do it again, I will have to leave. I respect your opinion, but this is my life and my decision. So thank you very much. I went through that very quickly. I tend to do that when I talk. What time is it? Oh, wonderful. We can have all sorts of conversations.
No, that was honestly very intriguing. I don't know that I learned anything I didn't intrinsically know, but the process, the construction of it certainly is eye-opening. One quick request, if there's anything else you want to cover, please do, but I do want to offer you some feedback when we're not being recorded.
Okay. I did notice we had someone else come in. Hello to the person who just came in. I can go back over anything if you would like.
I appreciate that. I was having difficulty getting into the room.
Yeah, I can start over here since I did go through everything very quickly. I can go back if I can.
Was the connection not responding when you were trying to get into the room?
It was giving me like a splash page and I had to click all over it. And I don't know what I ended up clicking, but I finally got in. I was able to join 3 other classes on the schedule with no problem. It was just this one.
How weird.
I kind of feel bad that I jumped into the other classes just to leave to see if I could.
Zoom is running an update this week. Like I had to update this morning or it wouldn't start. So it may be version compatibility. I've seen that happen.
Well, and I did update my Zoom this week, so that's a possibility on my.
Okay.
Do you want me to continue to record this or do you want me to stop the recording?
You can stop the recording since we went through it already.